like to invite Will Tesh to come up to do a pop-up. I'll also announce that we have a board meeting next week right after this meeting.
All right, so we're trying to organize the St. Johns River cleanup on June 4th, Saturday, 10 a.m. at the Curtis Lee Johnson boat ramp. Come by boat, bring your kayak, also on shore for the boat ramp cleanup as well. So come on out, there's sign-up sheets on the table, just trying to get a head count. Hope to see y'all there.
Thank you, Will. The 6970 District Conference was here in Jacksonville the 29th and 30th of April. I'd like to recognize some folks that attended. Larry Daly, Judy Matheny, would you stand up, please, Judy? Gigi Carroll, stand up, please. Dane Jensen, President-elect Sean, she's already standing. Hey, Sean. Assistant District Governor Ed Lombard, past District Governor Marshall Butler, and myself. So we have one of the largest turnouts, really a good event. Really appreciate the leadership turning out. Thank you. Also, the Rotary Leadership Institute is this weekend at the land. I'm going, Larry's going. Anybody else going? All right. Family of Rotary this week. Palmer Bell, would you come up and do Family of Rotary, sir?
Good afternoon. Dan Maloney was kind enough to sign up for the month of May, so you're going to see me instead. Does anybody know how Dan is doing? Any contact with Dan since he moved zoos? Oh, okay. We did hear this week from Clayton Riley, and he just wanted to be remembered to all of you. So Clayton is doing well. We have news that Lee Davis's son, Aaron, just graduated from UNF. Congratulations, Lee. Lee's son, Aaron, was a business major with an emphasis in marketing. So has he gainfully employed yet, Lee? Oh, wonderful. And then also heard from Bob Hyde that he and his wife, Marilyn, will be celebrating their 50th anniversary on the 20th. So congratulations to Bob and his wife. Then birthdays coming up next week on Monday, the 16th, Carter Rosenblum, and on the 17th, Doug Milne. So congratulations to both of you on your births. And in honor of Mark being here today as our speaker, there's no secret, we've had our coaching troubles in Jacksonville with the Jaguars. But you probably also realize that Cinderella was a horrible football player. Her coach was a pumpkin.
Okay. Thank you, Palmer. Thank you. Thank you. Now our Sergeant of Arms report, Rahul Sharma, followed by Jimmy Kelly with the introduction of our program today.
President Sherlock, thank you so much. And I always said that Palmer Bell is the best setup guy in Rotary. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come up. You know, the characteristics of community and fellowship are at the core of Westjax Rotary. Each week, you all know that I am privileged to welcome community members and family members that join us week to week. Today, joining us back again from the Orange Park Rotary Club is Krista Candlish. Krista, please stand for an ovation. Welcome back, Krista. We'll certainly make use of the transfer portal and trying to make you a full-time member here. So give us some time, but we'll make that happen as we continue to build strength here at Westjax Rotary. Also, how about past President Mary Pat Wallmeyer delivering a grand slam of a blessing invocation today for our club? That's a great start. Thank you, Mary Pat, for that. and all inspired. And you also have a person that you would like to introduce to our club today as well, one of your neighbors, Mary Pat.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce my neighbor, Don Meyer. He's visiting for the first time.
Welcome, Don, and we hope that this is the first of many interactions that we'll have. So thank you for being here with us today. As usual, I'm always thankful to our Rotary team. We have a great starting lineup, and we got a great bench. We got great depth, and really appreciative of our Rotary Air Traffic Control Tower to ensure that our members arrive safely. Stu Irwin and Patty Chapman, how about a round of applause for them? Our broadcast engineer to ensure that each of our meetings go on without a hitch, Joe Springer in the seat yet again. Joe, thank you so much. I'm going to take this time. I know that each week I share inspiration as well as energy, but in this Rotary Minute segment, I want to touch on ethics. Very important. Arthur Sheldon, a revered figure in Rotary history, joined the Rotary movement in 1908 and really is regarded as being responsible for vocational service and contributing to the motto and Rotary principles, and even coining the phrase, quote, "He profits most who serves best." Well, Sheldon moved to Chicago after graduating from the University of Michigan, but he found himself appalled by the business ethics that dominated the area in Chicago at that time, or rather the lack of business ethics. He abruptly quit a job because of the unethical things his employer expected of him. Sheldon argued that not only can ethical business people survive in a community filled with unethical businesses, but they can even prosper. Given a choice, people will always choose someone that they can trust. This principle, later formalized in the four-way test, quickly becomes a core element in our Rotary philosophy. And I believe it is fair to say that those principles apply to our club and the trust that I see among our members here today. So President Sherlock, I appreciate the opportunity to share inspiration and energy with our club week to week. That does conclude my report for today. Here to introduce our guest speaker from the Jacksonville Jaguars is past president Jimmy Kelly. And Jimmy has done a great job engendering a relationship partnership with Mark Lamping. Please welcome Jimmy Kelly to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Rule. Appreciate it. I'm delighted to introduce our speaker today. He's no stranger to West Jacksonville. Been over here about 4 to 5 times, maybe. I just wanted to show y'all. That is a resume. I would read it, but then Mark won't have any time to talk. So I'll just hit some of the highlights. He's been here for 10 years. He's the president of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He handles all non-football operations, which are all of Sean Codd's holdings, everything non-related to football. He's responsible for working on the Four Seasons down at the shipyard, Daly's place. He is a St. Louis guy, worked for the Cardinals, went over to New York, worked for the Giants, and also was in charge of building the MetLife Stadium over there, which was the largest open air stadium in cold weather to host the Super Bowl. We could go on and on, but I'm not going to. Just to say that Mark currently serves on the board of directors of just a few: American Cancer Society, Jack's Chamber, Jack's chapter of the American Heart Association, Ronald McDonald Charities. He was introduced into the First Coast Business Hall of Fame and received the Living and Giving Award from Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. Mark is married. He's from St. Louis. He's married to Cheryl. They have 3 children and 6 grandchildren. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our good friend, Mark Lamping.
Well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here. And I look around the room, many season ticket holders are part of this, many of our partners in the community. And Rotary's been such a big supporter of the Jaguars, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. I met Jimmy under sort of what I thought were somewhat unusual circumstances. It wasn't that long after I had arrived here, and he had called my office and talked to my assistant, Elisa. And, he said, I'd like to introduce myself to that new guy. Can you put me through? So I picked up the phone and he introduced himself. He said, Mark, I had a couple questions for you. He said, are you an American? I said, yeah, I'm an American. He said, as an American, do you believe in everything America stands for? I said, absolutely. He said, good. That's good. That's good. You're here in Jacksonville. It's good you got those traits. So you believe in the Bill of Rights? I said, yes. So you believe in free speech? I said, of course. He said, good. You're going to give one at the West Jacksonville Rotary meeting in 3 months. So, what I thought I would do today is just give you an update on a lot of the things that we're working on, and then leave it open to any questions you might have. As Jimmy pointed out, I run all the business side of the Jaguars. I don't, touch what's happening on the field, but any question you want to ask, I'll do my best to give you a good answer. It's an exciting time, with the Jaguars, and I think it's a exciting time for the city of Jacksonville, and I think it's an exciting time for downtown. We were just talking a few moments ago about it wasn't that long ago between a number of events that were all happening at the same time. Over 70,000 people were in downtown Jacksonville attending events. That's a big number. And a few weeks ago, it was great to see a story in the Wall Street Journal about Jacksonville being the third fastest growing city in terms of jobs and job wage growth, behind Austin, Nashville, and that was it. The other two in the top 5 were Salt Lake City and Charlotte. So a lot of momentum, and I've been blessed to be here now for 10 years, and would never consider leaving this wonderful community. We through SHOT's commitment to downtown are involved in a lot of things right now. We have a new practice facility under construction. I don't know if you drive by the stadium much, but we're out of the ground. We've commenced vertical construction. The project's about 10-11% complete and on track for completion in June of next year. But the project we're really working hard on is what's happening on the shipyards, and that's the Four Seasons Hotel, Four Seasons Residences, an office building, a remodeled or rebuilt marina services building to make that marina more full service, and then a second a wave of development that will include a partnership with Baptist and their orthopedic group. So it's a big project. I'm sure many of you in this room have been involved in construction projects maybe over the last 12 months. It is really, really hard these days, and it's hard for a number of reasons. First, you have the remnants of COVID, which is still impacting the supply chain and your ability to get materials. You also have the unprecedented inflation that everybody's dealing with. You have a really interesting time as it relates to the construction industry. There is a lot of work out there, and there's more work than there is capacity to do that work. So it's really difficult to get subcontractors, at least subcontractors in the numbers that you typically would, in order to be able to appropriately, competitively bid a project. So that's really difficult these days. And then unfortunately, the global unrest that has had some impact on the financial market. So all of that combined is making it a really difficult environment. The good news is We're on track to close on the property on June 10th, which is a big milestone. We've completed our design team for the hotel. We're well into design of the facility. And just to give you a sense on how this market has changed, our original commitment to the city was to spend at least $301 million on this project. You know, we sit here today, we're at 370 million and counting. The good news is that Shad hasn't lost any of his enthusiasm. So it's going to be a much more expensive project, but it'll be just as impactful. We've wrapped up all of our due diligence on the property. There's nothing that we found during our due diligence period that would suggest that we can't move ahead with the project. We're closing on the property, so that's the indication that we are moving forward. But we did find some things on that property that we didn't fully expect to find. There were some undisclosed utility lines that were going through the property that didn't show up on any city plans that we're going to have to relocate. We finally got access to be able to fully assess the marina, and brought a firm in to do that and to really examine the marina from underneath the water as well as what you could see on top. And those of you who may be boaters know that that marina is in really bad shape, a lot worse than we anticipated. The bulkhead along that part of the river is failing. And we always knew that there were, because of the previous use as a shipyard, there were these big concrete gantry rails that they would use to pull the ships out of the water so that they could do work. Our hope was that we'd be able to build around those gantry rails, but it looks like some, if not all, are going to have to be removed. So the good news is it's not going to affect the the project in terms of us getting it completed. The bad news is there's a lot of work that we're going to have to do before we can start going vertical. But we certainly expect to be in the ground working on that project before the end of this year. So it'll be spectacular. It's a project that Shad really believes in. He thinks that it can be a real catalyst for other development downtown. There is a lot of activity downtown. In fact, there's so much activity that it's a little difficult for the city to keep up with the process that developers have to go through to advance their projects. That's a good problem to have. So there's a lot of interest in downtown. You're already seeing it in terms of what's happened with property values, not only throughout the community, but particularly downtown. People expect that there's going to be a lot of development there. The Four Seasons will be 179 rooms, 25 condominiums, 3 restaurants. It'll be a spectacular hotel, certainly fitting of the Four Seasons brand. So we've been working really hard on that. Like I said, we expect to be in the ground doing some site work before the end of the year, and then be going vertical with the project by the middle of next year. So big development. The other thing that you've probably heard a little bit about, and that's really the stadium of the future, we call it. You know, we've been engaged with the city for over 2 years now on trying to figure out what is the long-term solution for the stadium here in Jacksonville. Shad's commitment is to make sure that there's NFL football here in Northeast Florida for generations to come. There's a few things we have to accomplish in order to be able to do that. One, certainly at the top of the list is, put a better team on the field, and hopefully we'll have some momentum and see some big improvement this year. The second thing that is really important is that we think we're only going to be as strong as downtown Jacksonville, and to the degree that downtown Jacksonville can help realize its full potential. It's wonderful now, but no one would believe that it's realized its full potential, particularly when you see so much vacant property along the banks of the St. Johns River. And then the last piece is, what's the solution for the stadium. So we've been working with the city in a process for over 2 years. We're working through that process in a very disciplined way. Great cooperation from both parties. I think we're more aligned than we've ever been in terms of our dealings with city council, with the mayor's office, with other city officials, and feel really good that we're marching towards a solution that will provide a stadium that can meet the needs of our fans, meet the needs of the universities of Florida and Georgia, meet the needs of the Gator Bowl, meet the needs of other event holders that bring big events to downtown Jacksonville, for decades to come. So it's a good process. There's nothing imminent, but one of the things that we had committed to early on is when teams find themselves in trouble, they usually have, 3 things in common. One is they tend to be in smaller markets. And while Jacksonville is a big growing city, we're about number 42 or 43 in terms of television markets across the country. And the only NFL markets that are smaller than Jacksonville is Green Bay, which is a bit of an anomaly, and Buffalo. We're about the same size as New Orleans, right around that. Other than that, we're near the bottom. So generally, the teams that find themselves in trouble tend to come from small markets. The other thing is they generally have stadium problems that they haven't dealt with. So you see the Rams leave St. Louis to go to Los Angeles because of a stadium dispute. You saw the Chargers go from San Diego up to Los Angeles because of a stadium dispute. You saw the Raiders leave Oakland to go to Las Vegas over a stadium dispute. So given that it's that important, it's really critical to us that we stay way ahead of this, and we're doing that. And like I said, I feel very confident that we will be able to deal with this issue in a very positive way. I believe that in terms of discussions with city leaders, but also because that's the outcome that Shad wants. Shad has no interest in seeing the Jaguars anyplace other than Jacksonville. The interesting thing when the NFL chose Jacksonville, sort of against all odds, many years ago, the other team that came in at that same time was the team in Charlotte, the Charlotte Panthers. And there was an expectation at the time when Jacksonville was chosen that Jacksonville would end up being sort of the regional banking hub in the Southeast. And as you know, that really didn't necessarily materialize. Charlotte and Atlanta have the higher concentration of big national and regional banks. And as a result of that, when the Jaguars came in the league, Duval County actually had a population higher than Mecklenburg County. Mecklenburg County is where Charlotte is. But since that's time, it's totally reversed. So, everything that we see suggests that the growth that the National Football League expected to happen over the last 25 years is ahead of us right now. And I don't think there's any question that Jacksonville's growing. You're seeing it in against about every single important metric, whether it's population, number of jobs, average wages, the size of the local economy. All those things are moving in a very, very positive direction. And I think we're beginning to see that now in terms of the developer interest in Jacksonville. And what's encouraging to us as an entity that's in the development business, but it's really sort of like the reluctant developer. That's not what we do, but we know that the projects have to get done, is seeing national developers come into Jacksonville. A good example is Related. There's a worldwide developer is doing the project on the South Bank where the old River City Brewery used to be. So a lot of really positive things. I've said this many times that over the course of the past 10 years, with the exception of maybe one season, our fans have performed so much better than the team. I think Jacksonville gets many times unfairly criticized, in terms of the support that our fans provide the team. a lot of it has to do with people's just ignorance of what's really going on in Jacksonville. You know, all people have to do is get down here and see this community, you know, like I did. I'd never been to Jacksonville before I accepted a job down here. And, you know, what I found was so much more than I had any idea I would find here, you know, and it starts with the people, of course. But, you know, just look out the window here. You know, you've got this beautiful historic river. You've got the beaches. You've got, you know, great historic neighborhoods like the one we're in here. The medical infrastructure in this community, you know, you could put it up against any community in terms of what's happening here. You know, at least three great hospital systems here, and all of them investing. Mayo's making a huge investment. There's the proton therapy facility here that was one of the first in the U.S. Certainly one of the first in the Southeast through the UF health system. And I think it's probably been here 10 or 15 years, maybe longer than that, the proton therapy, which was really cutting edge. The next evolution of that is something they call carbon therapy. It's about 20 times more powerful than the proton therapy. And one of the first installations of that in North America is going to be right here in Jacksonville out in Mayo. So big investments being made. It's a great place to be. And, you know, our days for the football team are clearly ahead of us, you know. But I think the same thing is true for this community. The difference is this community is already at a really high level, and then collectively we're going to go much higher than that. So we're excited for the season. We're excited about the draft, but we're like 31 other teams that all said they had a great draft. You know, check back in a few years. You'll see what happens. I think the biggest difference, I really like the joke about, you know, the Cinderella has a pumpkin for a coach. You know, that's a dad joke I'm going to share with my granddaughters. They'll get it better than this group got it. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was really funny. So the biggest difference though from last year to this year, there's a lot of things you can point at, and you expect Trevor Lawrence to have a better year. You expect some of the young contributors last year to do better this year. You have a draft class comprised of a lot of high draft picks, but the biggest difference is Doug Peterson. I mean, I can tell you, being in the building every day over the past 10 years, this year versus last year is night and day. I mean, I hope you all, if you haven't had a chance to meet him, you get the opportunity to meet him. He is just such a normal person. You know, there's no ego. He realizes that it's a player's game. He treats everybody like they're professionals because they are. And I think he's going to make an unbelievable difference. It's not just the comparison of our coach from last year to him, which is really dramatic. But, you know, I think he's exactly what the organization has needed. Everybody's able to take a deep breath, focus on our job, and do so in a very united way. So really looking forward to this season. Tomorrow will be a big day because we get our schedule tomorrow. So other than our game October 30th in London, we'll find out, you know, what the schedule looks like. And it's always an exciting day for us within the organization, but also our fans. So with that as a little bit of an overview, I would love to take any questions you might have.
Optimism and a bright future for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ladies and gentlemen, President Mark Lamping.
Okay.
At this time, Rotarians, if you have a question, just hands shot up straight in the air. Charlie Fetzer is number one.
I'm sure you mentioned it, but not in sequential order there. The three problems, small market and the stadium problem. And I didn't hear number three and what it was exactly.
I think downtown realizing its full potential, because when people are going to go to a game, they want to feel very comfortable when they're going to the game. We have that now, but I think there's a huge opportunity to have downtown be a much more vibrant place, so that people will be more people will be living there, more people will be visiting, and hopefully more people will be working there. So those are three things we need to focus on. The performance of the team, we have 100% control over. As far as the stadium, we have a lot of control over in conjunction with the city. And as far as the downtown really gets realizing its full potential, we're certainly going to do our part. And we're very confident that others will follow because we're seeing it already.
Mark, over to your right-hand side over here, Alberta has a question for you.
Mr. Lamping, when the fairgrounds or the fair is moved to Cecil, could you share with us what you have in mind there?
Sure. So the fairgrounds are moving out near the equestrian center up by Cecil. They are really landlocked at their current location, and we're not able to probably be as true to their agricultural roots as they once were because they just simply have the space. It also creates quite a bit of disruption when the fair goes on. Sometimes it always seems to impact at least one Jaguars game because their midway is built on a parking lot. Sometimes it impacts the Florida-Georgia game. And, the fair felt that for them to grow and to become an even better asset to this community, they needed another location. They worked with the city to move out near the equestrian center, but they have to invest in it. And the major asset that the fair board owns is the property. So we worked with them early on to help facilitate the move and came to an agreement with them to purchase the fairgrounds property. It's a little over 14 acres when they move out near Cecil Field, which will happen in 2 to 3 years. Our plans is our immediate plans for that property will be to tear down the buildings and convert it all to surface parking. Right now, you can park about 850 cars on that site. I'm sure some of you go to Jaguar games, but you park at the fairgrounds. What'll happen is you'll be able to park over 1,500 spaces. We'll be adding parking spaces, which is important to our fans because it also then allows us perhaps to look at some other areas for parking and convert that to some other use other than surface parking.
Mark, thank you. Corner pocket, Jeff Ludwig has a question, followed by Brandon Hillard.
This is just kind of a general operational question on revenue. Everybody, as I understand it, participates in television advertising revenue, however that comes in. There's like a big pot that sits up here. How does that get distributed down to the large market, medium market, and then down to us as a small market? Just in general, how does that work?
Well, there's basically two sources of revenue. There's revenue that is national revenue that is shared equally by all the teams, okay? And then there's local revenue. Local revenues, ticket sales, sponsorships, parking revenue, and things like that. So the national revenue is equal amongst all teams. And along with that, that national revenue is tied to restrictions that all the teams agreed to along with the Players Association, that they all won't spend more than a certain amount on players. So it's called a salary cap. So those things are combined. So basically what it is half of the money that's generated nationally and shared equally amongst the teams, roughly 50% of that must be spent on player salaries. And that's equal team to team. So each team can only spend so much. So it's a really good system. The other revenue, every team is on their own. And so the revenue that you're going to generate to allow you to do things like invest in coaches, invest in facilities, invest in technology, all of that is sourced through your local revenue growth. And that's where you see disparities between teams in terms of revenue. I think we're 26 out of 32 teams in terms of revenue. When Shad bought the team, we were 31st. So we've made some progress, but we're probably always going to be in the lower quartile just because there's scale. So local revenue is really important to us because it's the dollars that allow you to invest. The national revenue allows you to sort of stay in business. The local revenue allows you to grow, to be able to increase employment, to invest in your people, to invest in your facilities.
Next question is from Brandon Hillard.
You mentioned a lot of things that piqued my interest, and really makes me want to ask a lot of questions.
Sure.
But I guess the first question is, when I look at markets like New York, the Jets don't play in New York. You know, they're over in Jersey and you take the drive. So why downtown if it's return on investment? It's really important for Charlotte.
Really good question. And we've looked very closely at that. Okay. And if you look at our fan base and you were going to find out where is the heart of Jaguar Nation, the point in this region where you're the closest to our season ticket holders, it has been slowly migrating south and east. Okay. So right now the heart, if we were going to locate a stadium that would be the closest to all of our fans, we would build someplace out around 295 and Butler Boulevard if there was property out there. Okay. But on the other hand, there is something to be said for having a really strong commercial heart to your community. It used to be downtown, you know, when Jimmy was in high school here. Everything that they did, you probably went downtown. That's where the shopping was. That's where you went. And that's where all the majority of the jobs were. Okay. Right now, there's twice as many jobs in the town center Deerwood area than there is downtown. So, you know, Shad seems to believe that that a great community has to have a great downtown. Part of having a great downtown is having sort of the cultural and the sports activities being centered there, we think. And to be quite honest with you, I think we can make a bigger impact downtown by investing than by joining the list of developers that are interested in northern St. Johns County. So, sure.
Have you ever been to Durham?
Raleigh, Durham?
Yeah.
I have.
To see the Bulls.
I have.
So you've been to that stadium. Why? I just feel like that stadium is like the best idea stadium that is in the Southeast, you know, because if you go there, you have the, 6 dozen businesses that all have their building built
right
onto the side of the stadium. And I could see something like that here, but Jacksonville's kind of a quagmire for that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's a little easier to do that. I mean, another perfect example is, I don't know if you've been to Greenville, South Carolina. So the ballpark that they have in Greenville is another perfect example of that. You know, baseball is a little, minor league baseball is certainly different than the NFL, and major league baseball is different, than the NFL. Most of the great ballparks basically are built in an urban center, and they're not surrounded by parking lots. So like Wrigley Field, PNC Park in Pittsburgh, Wrigley Field, places like that, the new ballpark in St. Louis, they transitioned from stadiums with parking lots around them to stadiums being part of the fabric and the layout of those downtown communities. That works well for a baseball audience. It doesn't work quite as well for football because tailgating is such an integral part of the experience. We don't think that tailgating is always going to be quite as important going into the future, or said another way, we don't think we necessarily have to provide as much surface parking as we have in the past as ride sharing continues to grow, as public transportation gets better. And quite honestly, people just stop buying cars, which you see a lot, right now. So, we're trying to do the mix of two. We're trying to have the stadium be sort of the heartbeat of a growing, vibrant community. And at the same time, make the experience as positive as it can be. I think you're already starting to see it. It started with Intuition that went in next to the ballpark, or next to the stadium, and where the Shrimp play. Then you saw Manifest Distilling come in, and now you see a major apartment building under construction, 280 units, 19 or 20 story residential tower will be right there in the sports district. And then, we have our project and we still have other aspirations to do more and more there. The best experience that we'd like to have is to have somebody who's in this neighborhood and wants to take their boat to the game and can go to a great marina, or somebody that lives out by the beaches and is going to drive down, that the traffic is managed well and there is a place for them to park, which isn't, a half mile away from the stadium. And then people that are living downtown or parking downtown and making that journey, that walk to the stadium, and try to accomplish all of those things. And some of that has to do with the design. Others of it has to do with what else is around there. And, the sports complex is very, very safe, but sometimes there is a perception, that people always want to feel safe. And one of the best ways to feel safe is if you're walking, the half mile from downtown to the sports complex, if you're seeing a lot of people. And, right now, one thing we don't have as much in Jacksonville is if you go downtown right now, you wouldn't see a lot of people walking around. Some of that is because not as many people live there. There's not as many people working still because of COVID. And there's really not a lot of reasons to leave your office because there's not a lot of retail. You may go someplace to go to lunch, but there's not really no place to shop. I'm sure I'm overlooking some great local boutiques downtown. I don't mean to be dismissive of that, but there's right.
Mark, same table, next seat over. Drew Bisbee has a question, followed by Gigi Carroll.
Thanks for being here. You spoke earlier about revenue sharing in regards to TV revenue. I have two sons that are 22 and 23. They never watch TV. They're always on their phone or on the computer. Other than NFL ticket, what other ways are you looking at in the future to grow your audience, especially with the younger viewers?
Well, the league has done an incredible job in terms of expanding their video offerings. So all the streaming services, in fact, you'll see it this year on Thursday night. Thursday night games will be on Amazon Prime. Now, if you're participating, it'll be on over the air. But if you're out, if you're not in the home market or the visiting market of the team and you want to watch Thursday night football, you have to go to Amazon Prime to find it. So it's understanding where the eyeballs are, that trend of people getting their content via traditional over-the-air stations like your CBS, your NBC, your ABC, or going to cable, or going digital, meaning they're getting it, through a streaming service. All of the growth is in streaming, and other than NFL football, for the most part, every other day part, every other types of programming on over-the-air and cable is actually declining. So the NFL has been fortunate is that it still draws huge audiences compared to everything else that's offered. But I think the NFL has also been a bit of a leader in terms of making sure their product is accessible across all of those platforms. And if your son chooses to watch on his cell phone, it will be there. The other change with that is, and you probably have experienced it with your kids, they don't necessarily sit there and have to watch all 60 minutes of the game. Many of them are happy just getting alerts that there was just a score or something like that. For many, that's plenty. So that brings about its own set of challenges. But again, I don't want to make the answer too low. So what are the things that are offsetting that? What's offsetting that is the things that the league can do to have people more engaged. Fantasy football, which has been around 10, 15 years, is a big engagement. And you're going to see that with legalized sports betting once that happens. People be even more engaged and paying more attention.
Mark, I'm going to take you across the room, right center. Gigi Carroll has a question, and I'm going to send it back over to President Ike Sherlock. Gigi.
You talked about the waterfront development. Is the Lot J development still an active project? And if so, how will it connect? How does that impact the stadium?
There is a tremendous amount of interest in Lot J from city council members for us to bring the project back. I'm sure at some point it will come back. It'll probably be a different project, It was going to be the first project. Now it's the second project. So it is part of the master plan. But I would expect we'll be coming back with that because we don't think that the need for entertainment and housing for rent housing close to the stadium, that the need for that hasn't changed. Okay. It's just a question of when it happens. So I'm sure it'll come back. We learned a lot going through that process without question, applied that thinking to the shipyards and had a really positive result, and it'll certainly come back. But it's, there were 12 of 19 city council members that voted for this project. At least 3 of the ones that voted no had nothing to do with Lot J, not to suggest that it wasn't a controversial project, which it was. So all of those 12 that voted for it feel like it was a missed opportunity. So I hear from them all the time, when are you going to come back? But at the same time, we've moved that to the second phase, and we're focusing on the other phase. And we only have the capacity to do so much at one time. We're always going to do more. Just a question of when we do it.
Mark, I'm told we have time for one more question. So here is Mike O'Brien.
There we go.
Hey, Mark, not a question. Actually, I just want my fellow Rotarians to know what an unbelievable partner Shad Khan, Mark Lamping, Peter Racine, the foundation president, have been to the USO and to thousands and thousands of our enlisted and our military men and women. There's not a better franchise, I guarantee you, because I talk to my colleagues around the country, that supports our military, supports our USO than the Jaguars. Not any chance I have to recognize the Jaguars, I always want to say thank you. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Mike. Also, thanks for your service, your ongoing service. You make a big difference in the lives of servicemen and women and their families. And that's another thing that makes Jacksonville so special. I mean, even being right here, with NAS next door, and whether you see, it's about time, I think, for the helicopter to come down to St. John's River on a mail run, I guess, from Mayport to NAS. I don't know what it is, but it seems like every early afternoon that same helicopter comes down. And great tradition here. And not only is it the right thing for us to do in this particular market, it's probably the most important thing we need to do. So
really appreciate the patron engagement today for our guest speaker, Mark Lamping, the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you have a question, we ask that you stick around. How about another round of applause for our guest speaker today, Mr. Lamping? President Sherlock, we'll send it back up to you at the podium.
Thank you again, Mark. Really appreciate it. I know there's more questions. Maybe Mark can stick around a little bit. 2 important announcements. We'll be meeting here next week. Our speaker will be Scott Showalter from One Blood. And the other announcement is all the Rotarians in this district were emailed a survey for club health. So it's really important. This is your club. This is my club. This is our club. Really important that you complete those surveys, submit them. President Sean, incoming President Sean, and her board needs that input. We always want to constantly be improving and constantly be doing a better job to serve our club and serve our community. So really important to complete those surveys, send them in, okay? I'd ask Mike Crumpler to lead us in the 4-way test.
Please join with me in the 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
The quote of the week: only I can change my life. No one can do it for me. Carol Burnett.